It was an ordinary afternoon when Anna decided to clean out the guest room of her grandparents' old house. Dust lay thick on the wooden floorboards, and the faint smell of cedar lingered in the air. She knelt to sweep beneath the bed when her broom handle struck something solid. Curious, she crouched low and pulled it into the light. A worn leather suitcase, edges frayed, brass latches dull with age. Her breath caught. She had never seen this suitcase before. It was heavier than it looked. Anna set it on the bed, brushing off layers of dust. The leather cracked like old skin, and the initials stamped on the corner JW were nearly invisible now. Her grandfather's initials. She hesitated, her hand on the latch. Why had her grandfather kept this hidden? He had passed away years ago, leaving behind stories of his garden, his humor, his gentle patience, but he had never spoken of what he carried from the war. The latch creaked open, and the faint smell of paper and iron filled the room. Inside lay folded uniforms, yellowed photographs, and at the very top, a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon. Each envelope bore a name she didn't recognize. Anna's heart pounded. Who was this person? Why had her grandfather guarded their letters beneath his bed all these years? And in that moment, she realized she wasn't simply cleaning. She was about to walk into a forgotten chapter of her family's history. The letters were fragile, ink faded but legible. She carefully unfolded the first one. The handwriting was neat, slanted, but trembling in places. To my dearest friend, if this finds you, know that the nights here are long, but thoughts of home keep me alive. Anna swallowed. These weren't letters to her grandmother. They weren't love letters either. They were words of survival, scratched on paper during days of hunger and fear. She flipped through more, each signed the same way. Your brother in arms, Elias. The name was unfamiliar, yet the tone was intimate, as if Elias had been more than a friend. Anna sat back, suitcase open before her, letters scattered like leaves. Her grandfather had never once spoken of Elias. He had spoken of neighbors, colleagues, even strangers he met at the market. But this name, this man, was missing from every story. Why? She glanced at the photographs tucked inside. Two young men in uniform, arms slung around each other's shoulders, mud on their boots, grins on their faces, her grandfather on the left, and Elias on the right. Anna traced the photo's edges with her fingertip. The picture trembled in her hands, not because of the drafty room, but because of the weight of discovery. And so, to you listening now, what would you do if you found a suitcase like this? If the person you loved had guarded a secret friend, a brother in arms, someone whose name was never spoken aloud? Share your thoughts in the comments. Has your family ever kept stories hidden, waiting to be uncovered? Don't forget to subscribe to Years Ago Stories so you don't miss what comes next, because the truth inside this suitcase will change the way Anna sees her grandfather forever. Anna arranged the letters on the quilt like fragile artifacts. Each envelope had been carefully preserved, their edges browned, the ink faint but legible. She felt as though she were trespassing on something sacred. Yet the suitcase had been waiting hidden but not locked, quiet but not sealed. She chose one marked with a date, 1943. The paper crackled as she unfolded it. John, the mud never leaves us. Even when we scrape our boots clean, it clings. The nights are colder, and I've stopped counting days. But when you laugh at my poor jokes, for a moment it feels like home. Promise me that if one of us doesn't make it back, the other will carry our story. We cannot vanish into silence. Anna pressed a hand to her mouth. Her grandfather had promised someone, long before she was born, that he would carry a story forward, and yet he never spoke the name Elias to her, not once. Beneath the letters lay a folded uniform jacket. The fabric was stiff, the color faded, but when Anna lifted it, dust drifted like breath. In the pocket was a small brass button, detached but saved. On the inside collar, embroidered in thread, was a name, E. Meyer. Anna whispered the letters aloud, Elias Meyer. The name seemed to change the air in the room. Her grandfather had kept not only letters, but clothing, a physical fragment of the man who wrote them. Next to the uniform was a notebook, its pages water-stained. On the cover was a sketch of the same bridge from the photograph's wooden planks spanning a river. Beneath it, in careful script, for J, from E, Anna's fingers trembled. The bridge appeared again and again, an emblem of a vow, a promise carved in wartime, just as children once carved theirs. She spread the photographs across the bed. Some showed soldiers lined up in mud, weary eyes staring into the lens. Others captured fleeting joy, men playing cards, two friends sharing a cigarette, a pair of boots dangling from a tree branch. But the most striking were the ones of Elias and her grandfather together. They weren't posed like soldiers. They were relaxed, leaning on each other, laughter unrestrained. In one photo, Elias had his arm draped across John's shoulders, head tilted toward him, grin wide as if the photographer had caught them mid-joke. In another, both men stood ankle-deep in water, splashing each other, the river behind them carrying both debris and sunlight. Anna studied them with a lump in her throat. These were not just comrades. They were bound in a way deeper than words on paper could capture. Near the bottom of the suitcase, she found another bundle, these sealed in envelopes never opened. The handwriting was the same, but the stamps were foreign, never marked by the post office. Why hadn't her grandfather opened them? Or had he, and resealed them for safekeeping? She slit one envelope carefully with a letter opener. John, I know the war is changing us. I see the shadows in your eyes, but I believe that if we live, we must return to that bridge by the river and remember who we were before the noise. If we don't, then the war will win twice. Anna exhaled slowly. The bridge again, the promise again. Elias had tied his hope not to medals or victory, but to memory, to a place where friendship outlived horror. Anna sank onto the bed, surrounded by letters, uniforms, and photographs. Her grandfather had kept all of this, carefully hidden, for decades. Why not share it? Why bury Elias's name under silence? She thought of her grandmother. Did she know? Had she sat on this very bed, folding laundry, unaware of the suitcase beneath her feet? Or had she chosen to let the silence remain, to allow her husband his private grief? The thought unsettled her. If love or loyalty had been part of this, it wasn't a betrayal, it was devotion carried through decades of secrecy. As she gathered the letters back into the suitcase, Anna found one final object wrapped in cloth. She unrolled it and gasped. It was a silver compass, tarnished but intact. On the back, engraved words, "To J, from E, find your way home." The compass needle quivered, pointing north. Anna held it to her chest. Elias had given this to her grandfather not as a trinket, but as a lifeline. She whispered aloud, "Did you keep it to find your way back to him, Grandpa? Or to keep him with you when he was gone?" The room gave no answer, but the suitcase seemed to breathe with memory. That night, Anna carried the suitcase downstairs and set it on the kitchen table. She lit a single lamp, the soft yellow glow spilling across the scattered artifacts. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock. It felt almost reverent, like she was opening a chapel to voices long gone. She reached for another letter, this one dated late 1944. The handwriting was shakier, as though written under duress. John, the world shakes every day. Some nights the shelling does not stop, and I dream of the river back home. Do you remember when we used to fish at dawn? You always caught more than I did. If we make it out, promise me we'll sit on that bank again. We will laugh like fools, even if our hands shake. Hold on. Your brother, Elias. Anna wiped her cheek, surprised at the tear that fell. The letter wasn't hers, but the longing within it was universal, a plea for normalcy in a world gone mad. She picked up another envelope, half torn, with dirt staining its edges. John, I fear this may be my last letter. If I fall, know that you were my family when everything else crumbled. Tell them I was not afraid. Tell them I kept faith, and if you cannot tell them, then at least remember me. That will be enough." Her chest tightened. Elias had written as though he sensed the end. The words carried resignation, but also a strange serenity. Anna imagined her grandfather reading this by dim lantern light in a bunker, perhaps pressing the paper against his chest. And she imagined the silence that followed. How could anyone explain such loss when they returned home? Among the scattered photos, one drew her attention. Unlike the others, this one was blurred, as if the camera had been jostled. Elias stood with John, but his face was turned mid-laugh, mouth wide open, eyes alight. The blur made it imperfect, but the imperfection gave it life. On the back, in faded pencil, her grandfather had written only one word: brother. Not comrade, not friend, brother. Anna thought about family gatherings over the years, her grandfather telling jokes at the table, her grandmother serving pies, the warmth of holidays, yet never, not once, had Elias's name surfaced. She realized then that silence itself was part of the inheritance. Some stories were too heavy to pass down, yet too precious to destroy. Her grandfather had chosen to let the suitcase speak in his absence. The clock struck midnight, but Anna stayed at the table, reading one letter after another. The rhythm of Elias's voice shifted from light-hearted jokes to dark admissions, from hope to despair. It was like listening to a man-age in fast motion, youth stolen by war. Each word carried a request: remember me. By the time she placed the last letter down, Anna felt she had met Elias herself. She could almost hear his laughter echoing in the walls, almost feel his presence hovering over the suitcase. Anna whispered into the quiet kitchen, "I remember you, Elias. Even if no one else knew your name, I do now." The lamp flickered, and for a heartbeat, she thought she felt warmth settle across her shoulders, like an unseen hand resting there. She exhaled, steady, as though a part of her grandfather's silence had been lifted. The next morning, Anna carried the suitcase into the living room where her grandmother, Margaret, sat knitting by the window. Sunlight spilled across the carpet, dust drifting like tiny stars. Anna placed the suitcase on the coffee table and opened it without a word. Margaret's needles stopped, her eyes fixed on the letters, the uniform, the compass gleaming faintly in the light. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she sighed, soft but deep, as though a weight she had carried for decades had just shifted. "You found it?" she murmured. Anna leaned forward. "Grandma, who was Elias Meyer?" Margaret set her knitting aside. Her hands trembled as she reached for a photograph, the one showing John and Elias with their arms around each other. She studied it with a tenderness that made Anna's chest ache. "He was your grandfather's best friend," she said quietly. "But more than that, he was his brother in every way that mattered. They went through fire together. Your grandfather loved him dearly. Why didn't he ever talk about him?" Anna pressed. Margaret's gaze fell. "Because sometimes grief builds walls too high for words to climb. He came home from the war with scars you couldn't see. He told me about Elias once, just once, on the night before our wedding. He said Elias had made him promise to live fully, for both of them, and then he never spoke the name again. I didn't ask. I thought it was his way of protecting me." Anna felt tears sting her eyes. So he carried this alone. All these years, he carried it under the bed. Margaret nodded. He couldn't let go of Elias. He couldn't erase him either. So he tucked the memories away where they were safe, but not gone. Every time he slid that suitcase under the bed, it was like saying, "I haven't forgotten you." Anna touched the compass. "Did you know about this?" Margaret smiled faintly. "He showed it to me once, but he never explained. He just said, 'This helped me find my way home.' I thought he meant the war, but now I see he meant Elias too." Anna's mother, Ellen, entered the room then, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She froze at the sight of the suitcase. "What's all this?" "Mom," Anna said, voice thick, "why didn't we ever hear about Elias? Did you know?" Ellen stepped closer, peering into the case, her brow furrowed. "I found the suitcase once. when I was a girl. I peeked inside, saw the uniform, the letters. When I asked Dad, he told me it was nothing for me to worry about. His eyes, they scared me that day, so I never asked again. Margaret reached for Ellen's hand. He wasn't trying to frighten you. He was protecting a wound he didn't know how to share. Ellen blinked rapidly. But it wasn't just his wound. It was part of our story, too. We should have known. Anna nodded firmly. We do now. And we can carry it together. The three women sat in silence, the suitcase between them like a guest finally invited to speak. Anna broke it first. I read the letters. Elias asked Grandpa to remember him, to carry his story if he didn't make it. Grandpa kept his promise, but he kept it alone. Maybe it's our turn now. Margaret's lips trembled. Yes, it is time. John carried Elias through silence, but we can carry him through words. Ellen whispered. What if telling the story feels like betraying Dad's choice to keep it hidden? Margaret shook her head. No, love. Silence was his shield, not his wish. He didn't want to erase Elias. He just didn't know how to speak without breaking. But we can speak now, and that is honoring them both. Anna gathered the photos, laying them out across the table. Look at them. They're not just soldiers. They're boys, laughing, joking, surviving together. If Grandpa wanted Elias remembered, then it's our duty to do it. Ellen touched one photo lightly. He looks so young. They both do. Margaret smiled through tears. They were too young to carry such heavy promises, but they did. Anna looked at her grandmother. Did you ever resent Grandpa for holding on to Elias like this? Margaret shook her head. No. Love doesn't shrink when it is shared. I was grateful he had someone who helped him survive. Elias gave me the man I married. Without him, John may never have come home. The clock chimed noon, the sound filling the room like a signal. Anna closed the suitcase gently. We can't put this back under the bed, she said. It belongs in the open now. We should write it down, tell the children, maybe even visit Elias's family if we can find them. Ellen nodded. Yes, let's make sure his name isn't lost again. Margaret pressed her hands together. Then John's promise will be truly kept. The three generations sat together, united by the suitcase, by memory, and by a vow carried through decades. It was no longer a secret burden. It was a family legacy. The following weekend, Anna sat in the local library's genealogy section, the suitcase open beside her. Her laptop glowed with census records and military archives. She typed Elias Meyer, 1,940 seconds, service records, into the search bar and scrolled past endless pages of names. Meyer was common. Elias was less so. But after hours of searching, she found him. Private Elias Meyer, listed as missing in action, presumed dead, 1,945. Anna's chest tightened. She had half expected it, but seeing the words in black and white made the letters ache with finality. Elias had never come home. Determined, she traced his name through records, eventually finding a sister listed in an old census. Miriam Meyer, 2 years younger. If Miriam lived, she would be in her 90s now, perhaps gone, perhaps still holding on to the same silence that had gripped her grandfather. Anna reached out through local history groups online, posting the photo of Elias and John together. Within a day, a reply came. I'm Ruth, Miriam's granddaughter. That's my great-uncle Elias. We never knew what happened to him. Anna's hand shook as she typed back. I think I have his story. A week later, Ruth arrived at Anna's home, carrying an old family Bible. She was around Anna's age, with the same cautious hope mirrored in her eyes. When Anna opened the suitcase and laid out the letters, Ruth covered her mouth with her hand. We thought they were lost forever. My grandmother used to say her brother vanished like smoke. She never believed he died, only that no one remembered him. Anna gently passed her the compass. Ruth turned it over, reading the engraving, tears streaking down her cheeks. He really lived. He really mattered. Yes, Anna said softly. And my grandfather never forgot him. Together, the two women read the letters aloud, voices alternating, as though resurrecting a conversation left unfinished. Each word brought Elias back into the room, filling the silence of decades. By the final letter, Ruth's hands trembled. My grandmother will want to hear this. She's still alive, 93 years old. She's been waiting all her life for someone to tell her what happened. Anna's breath caught. Then we'll tell her. The following month, Anna and Ruth sat in Miriam's living room, the suitcase on the coffee table between them. Miriam's eyes, clouded by age but sharp with recognition, widened as she touched her brother's photograph. This is Elias, she whispered, voice breaking. I prayed every night that someone would bring him home to me. Anna placed a hand over hers. He never came home, but he was never lost. My grandfather carried him here, and now, so will we. Miriam wept openly, clutching the letters to her chest. Bless you, child. Bless you for remembering him. That evening, Anna walked to the old family cemetery where her grandfather was buried. She carried the compass and one of the photographs. Kneeling at his grave, she spoke softly. Grandpa, I kept your promise. Elias is remembered. His sister knows. His family knows. You carried him all your life, and now I'll carry him too. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, Anna thought she felt a warmth settle over her shoulders, the same unseen hand she had imagined before. She smiled through tears. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna realized something profound. The suitcase had not been a burden. It had been a bridge between brothers, between generations, between families separated by war. And by opening it, she had not betrayed her grandfather's silence. She had completed his vow. Stories, she thought, are not meant to be hidden under beds. They are meant to be carried forward so that love, even born in the darkest times, does not fade. The days that followed Miriam's reunion with her brother's letters felt almost like a second lifetime to Anna. The old woman had held the suitcase against her chest as though it were Elias himself, and for hours she had wept and laughed in equal measure. In that living room, surrounded by photographs, letters, and the faint ticking of a clock, Anna had realized something she would never forget. Stories can keep people alive long after their bodies are gone. But Anna also knew the work wasn't finished. A promise carried for decades deserved more than silence, finally broken. It deserved to be shared so it could never again be forgotten. One Sunday afternoon, Anna gathered her mother, her grandmother, and Ruth around the dining table. The suitcase sat in the center, its brass latches now polished, its leather gently cleaned, as if preparing it for a new chapter. We can't just close this and tuck it away again, Anna began. Grandpa carried Elias in silence. We carried him in whispers, but it's time we carry him in the open. If we don't, then his letters may fade again, and his voice with them. Ruth nodded. I agree. My grandmother has lived 93 years without answers. Now she has them, but what happens when she's gone? We need something lasting. Margaret's voice, though frail, carried a firmness born of love. Then let's make it lasting. Let's write his name where no dust can reach it. Together, they contacted the local historical society, who listened in awe as the story unfolded. Soon a small exhibit was arranged at the town museum. The letters of Elias Meyer and John Whitman. The photographs were displayed under glass, the compass placed in a case of honor, the letters scanned and carefully preserved. On opening day, people from the town gathered. Veterans leaned on canes, children pressed their noses to the glass, and families paused in silence before the worn uniform. Anna stood beside her grandmother as Ruth read aloud one of Elias's letters. If I fall, remember me not as a soldier but as your brother. Promise me we will not vanish into silence. The words echoed through the hall, and in that moment, Elias was no longer missing in action. He was present, alive in memory, kept by a community that now carried his story. That evening, Anna walked alone by the river. The suitcase had done more than reveal her grandfather's grief. It had revealed a truth about memory itself. We do not choose which stories are passed down. We choose whether to carry them or bury them. She sat on the bank and opened her notebook. With careful handwriting, she began to write. This is the story of John Whitman and Elias Meyer. It is a story of promises kept, of silence endured, and of memory reclaimed. It is a story of brothers, not by blood, but by choice. Her pen moved across the page, steady, confident. She wasn't just telling their story, she was fulfilling a vow made long before she was born. Weeks later, Anna returned to her grandfather's grave, this time not alone. Ruth and Miriam stood beside her, the letters and photographs now preserved, their weight lighter but their meaning greater. Anna knelt, placing a fresh flower at the headstone. "Grandpa," she whispered, "you kept your promise, and now we've kept ours. Elias is remembered. His name will never fade again." Ruth placed the compass gently at the base of the stone. "You brought him home, not the way we dreamed, but the way he deserved." Miriam closed her eyes, lips trembling as she whispered her brother's name. For the first time in decades, it was spoken at his resting place. The silence broke, not in sorrow, but in peace. As they walked back from the cemetery, Anna carried with her an understanding that she knew she needed to share. The objects we hide in closets, under beds, or in forgotten boxes are not just things. They are voices waiting for someone brave enough to listen. Her grandfather had believed silence was a shield, but Anna saw it differently now. Stories are not weights to be hidden. They are bridges. They connect the past to the present, and they guide the future. And so, when she finally sat down to tell the tale through words, through film, through the echo of voices, she did not hesitate. She looked into the camera, heart steady, and spoke not just for herself, but for the generations before her. "So now I ask you," Anna's voice trembled with sincerity, "what stories are hidden in your family? What suitcases lie under your beds, waiting for someone to open them? Don't let them vanish into silence. Open them, share them, carry them forward." Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever discovered an old letter, a photograph, or an object that changed the way you saw your family? And don't forget to subscribe to Years Ago Stories. Each week we uncover the past not just to remember, but to remind us that love, sacrifice, and memory are never truly lost.